Okay, we're live. Good. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, and as chair of the Northwood Select Board, I'm calling the Select Board meeting to order with a roll call. Jim?
Here.
Beth?
Here.
Tim?
Here.
Matt?
Present.
And Hal. Let's all rise and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this point, I'll open it up for Citizens Forum. I do not see anyone present in the audience that has indicated they would like to speak. Did we get any emails in? No nope. Emails in. Okay, if not, then we're going to move right on to ongoing business. First up is approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any discussion of any of the items for edits before we get into a motion? Anyone?
I saw the same thing you did. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Oh, geez. Well, thank you. Okay, so what Matt's referring to is under the approval of the minutes last time, Beth was not here for that meeting, and so she abstained, and it got recorded as a dissent. So if we could just fix that so it shows she abstained, I think that would be fine. So at this point, could I get a motion to approve the minutes as adjusted?
So moved.
And a second, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you. So that's approved 5-0. I'd like to now move on to the consent agenda. I'll remind everybody that we read off what's on the agenda. If anybody would like to, after we've read it, take any items off and consider them separately, I'll give you a chance to do so. But Walter, why don't you start off by reading what's on the agenda as it stands right now?
Very good. Good evening. Walter Johnson, Town Administrator.
Oh, thank you.
The consent agenda for August 24th, 2021 includes an accounts payable manifest dated August 18th, 2021. Batch number 17820 for $2,087,017.70. It's a biggie. Included in this amount is a payment to Beauregard Equipment for repairs to the backhoe for $5,389. A payment to Cross Country Appraisal for their monthly payment of $4,500. A payment to East Coast Container for transportation of our waste cans from the transfer station. A payment to Mainstays Technology for $2,943 for our monthly maintenance and IT support for the town office building. A payment for $2,369 for Mitchell Group for legal services. A payment to the New Hampshire Retirement System for $31,920.58 for the Employees Retirement System. A payment of $2 million to the Northwood School District, SAU 44. And a payment to Waste Management Corporation for waste disposal from the transfer station in the amount of $8,737. So those are just some highlights of some of the more significant payments that were made in this particular AP manifest. We also have a manifest for accounts payable in the amount of $300,000. This is a single payment to Four Guys Incorporated, which is the manufacturer of the new fire pumper truck that is en route to New Hampshire the end of this week. And this is the down payment amount. The balance will be paid in the amount of $250,000 via a lease purchase finance within the next couple of weeks. We also have on the consent agenda a payroll manifest dated August 25th, 2021, batch number 17831 for $79,567.50. Also on the consent agenda is a application for disabled tax exemption from Robert Lindquist, and a elderly tax exemption application from Kathy Lindquist. Other items include a seasonal camper permit, Russell McKee, and a yield tax on timber cut from BMT Construction. And finally, our 2021 MS 535, which is the document that our auditors prepare after they've completed our audit and submit to the Department of Revenue, confirming our audited financials for the year 2020.
Okay, thank you, Walter. And I'll just note, as in the past, the accounts payable manifest, especially the first one, are reviewed prior to the meeting, and we typically sign off on them, but we include them for the public to know how we're spending their money. So that's the consent agenda as read. Does anybody want to pull any of these items off the consent agenda and discuss them separately? If not, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as read? Thank you. That passes 5-0. I'm now going to move on to the TA report, which includes items that Walter's working on, plus items that he may have for action for us.
So for August 24th, staffing updates, as I mentioned at previous meetings, the search for police officers continues. There are currently 2 positions that are being hopefully filled sometime in the near future. And the library also has 2 vacancies this week. And because of the shortage at the library, they did note that they are reducing their operating hours until they're able to fill those positions. Building repairs and maintenance, we are waiting for our contractor to come back and finish some of the repair items here at the town hall, which should be in the next couple of weeks, and then move on to the community center. And we're still looking for a painter to do some other contract painting work. Regarding the Harvey Lake Dam, I've received a detailed report on the dam from the surveyor, and the summary report is located in your packet. If you'd like, I have the complete report that has a significant detail of history on the property. It's several pages, so that's why I didn't send you the whole thing. I did send you just the summary and some of the maps that accompanied the report, but I do have that available if anybody would like to borrow it. It basically is, I guess we'd call inconclusive in terms of who the real owner of the dam is. It seems to straddle a couple of property lines, and there's no record of who built the dam and so forth. So we're pretty much in a position where we can assume that it doesn't belong to us and not have to take any action, or, in the best interest of the lake and maintenance of the dam before failure, as we've seen in other lakes in town recently, perhaps we should look at maybe doing some of the maintenance that's been recommended by the Dam Bureau. So We'll be looking for some direction from the board, perhaps at the next meeting after you've had a chance to maybe take a look at the report if you like. I'd be glad to copy it and send it along digitally if you like.
Yeah, well, why don't we do that, and then that'll give us a chance to digest it a little bit more. Does anybody have any immediate questions for Walter regarding this?
Do we have a sense of what the recommended maintenance would cost? So if we had, because that would be part of my thought process here. Is, if it's $2,000, that's a much easier swallow than adding an extra zero to that. So,
Yep. So I don't have a detailed estimate. I mean, some of the work can be done by Public Works because it's, cutting down alders and things like that can root and damage the earthen dam portion and so forth. But that's certainly something that we can take a look at and see if we can put together some type of a guesstimate of what it might be.
it would help me.
Yeah, no, you get, yeah.
Okay.
One more, go ahead, Hap.
No, you go ahead.
Is there an access road to get there? Because the gentleman on Route 4 doesn't seem like he's gonna,
Oh,
Well, again, there's the town property right at the dam. Again, as I say, it appears if you look at the map that the dam kind of straddles both property lines. So we do have at least access from the town parcel of land that's adjacent to that stream, the outlet stream, and so forth.
I looked at it quick, but it was kind of, when I copied it, kind of blurry, but does that come out on Harvey Lake Road, our property?
No, it's
No, it just,
you
short
have to
drive.
wind back in there to
Yeah.
get there.
It's just a portion of the road off of Shore Drive,
It's a
basically.
very initial.
yeah, that's what I thought. So, I mean, if we have to spend a little bit to grub out a road to get in there to work on it, that's also should be part of the cost, something to, I mean, if we're gonna spend $5,000 just to get in there to cut the first tree down,
But we can always go by water.
Well, in the winter, it's easier.
get the fire bow, yeah.
Or both.
Well, I think it does beg the question, though, Walter. I mean, I read what, was in the report, and it was clear that we own up to the stream,
Yeah.
as does Mr. Carver.
Correct.
And I know from my experience with a property that had a dam on it out in Lineborough, really you have to maintain beyond where the dam is to get some of these trees and stuff, because they want trees within 10 or 15 feet, because if they tip over, they rip out the rest of the dam. So I think one of the things we need to consider is if we don't have access to the Mr. Carver's side, we probably have to ask him to pay for the work on his side, because it's his responsibility as his, or at least maybe we need to get a legal opinion on that, but if he claims he owns that land, well then, maybe he has some responsibility there. So that would be one of the things I think we need to sort out.
That's another issue that, I mean, back when I did, well drilling, the guy over in Milton, they discrepancy, they finally said, he owns it, I don't want the responsibility, whoosh, dam's gone,
Yeah.
lake's drained, so,
Yeah. Well, that's why we got to be a little bit careful, but I think the other thing I said before the meeting was, the state, because Harvey Lake is more than 10 acres, owns the water, and the state owns all the streams. So they might not own the sides, and maybe we have to maintain that, but they might really be the owners of the dam itself.
Right, that's what I was going to ask. If they own the water, why don't they own the dam there also, along with it?
Well,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, again, looking back at the historical information that was provided, the dam obviously was created many, many years ago, and obviously filled up to create the lake once it was built, and of course, once it exceeded 10 acres, then the state assumed, responsibility for the waterway, but not necessarily, unless the state built the dam, then they would assume responsibility from that standpoint of view, or if it was on, state property. But they're not claiming that.
Right.
But
that's what I
maybe we
mean.
are.
Isn't it part of the lake? Dam's part of the lake is the way I'd view it. I mean, like
That's
what
not the
we,
way
with the
that they
boat
view it.
ramp, we built the boat ramp so people could access the lake. I wouldn't expect the state to deal with that, but, I mean, that was on it. That was there when they assumed the takeover, if I could put it that way. So that's just the way I would look at it.
Well, Jim, I think you have a good point, and that was sort of where I was leading. So maybe in the interim, you could send us the digital version of that so we can digest it a little bit more. And if it's in your judgment, let's get at least a preliminary legal opinion as to who we would have to task with the costs, given that we don't have, ownership of the land where some of the work needs to be done.
Okay.
And then does that sound fair? And then we can have a better discussion at least when we take this up next time.
I would also, I mean, even, I know
ahead.
that the research that has been done landed in a fairly inconclusive place. Next time you're having coffee with Mrs. Bailey,
Oh,
it's very much worthwhile to ask her if she has any knowledge of that, to at least point us in a new direction, potentially.
or any of the...
Any of the Historical Society folks, too.
Yes, okay, good, I'll take that on. That wasn't the end of your report though, Walter, was it?
No.
Third or fourth thing down. Continue, please, sir.
Thank you. Just to get an update on the town website, as I mentioned, we did touch base with the developer of the site this week. He's doing what he can to put in our comments and requests, and I'm hoping that we're going to have the final version within the next couple of weeks, so that we can get that up and live. We're continuing to work on the Route 4 bow drainage issue. We really haven't made much progress on that yet. Still waiting to hear back from the state. But I think I'll have to probably reach out to them again to get their attention. Town offices, again, just an update on the water damage. The sheetrock's been repaired. The tile has been ordered to replace the carpet. It's actually going to be installed now on September 9 and 10. And hopefully that'll finally put the offices back together downstairs. Still working with Eversource on the lighting upgrade program. It's getting a little frustrating, but I'm hoping that we're going to get some benefit out of all the time and energy that we've put into trying to meet the threshold of their calculations in order to get the best benefit from their program in terms of both fixture replacement as well as cost savings. So, as I mentioned in the last meeting, their model has changed because of the cost of fixtures going up, and so some of our buildings just don't meet the threshold for qualifying. They are working hard to try to get as many of them qualified as possible so that they will have a significant cost share with us on the fixture replacement. But I still don't have the final program as of yet, so hopefully I'll have something on that for the next meeting. So emergency shelter, we are planning to meet either later this week or hopefully by the end of this week to talk about creating an MOU for use of the school facility as a emergency shelter, and also to talk about perhaps acquiring a backup generator that will provide electricity and heat and so forth that a proper shelter should have, and also be a asset to the town as far as the school district is concerned in terms of preserving the asset in the event of a long-term power failure. So, working on that. As I mentioned when we were going through the consent agenda, we're finalizing the financing with Franklin Savings Bank at a rate of 2% for 5 years, and that will hopefully be completed by the first week of September so that we can finish the payment requirements on the truck itself. there are fees that go along with the financing, but they don't amount to much more than a tenth of 1%. So, we were looking at about 2.5% with one of the other providers and about 3% when the original proposal was made to the voters. So there will be a savings in terms of what was initially projected, as well as what's going to need to be appropriated every year or withdrawn from the expendable trust fund, the ambulance special revenue fund, to the tune of about $3,400 a year. So
So that's for 5 years, right?
for 5 years, about
4 times 5.
about $17,000.
Yeah, so about 15 grand.
20
Yeah.
grand.
Yeah. So
That was a good move.
yeah, so that's that's good good opportunity for us to save some money there. The municipal property improvements, we did finally get the hazardous trees removed from the parking area here. And we also did freshen up the traffic lines within the facility itself in terms of no parking and the delineation of parking spaces and handicaps, et cetera, so you can now see them.
Yeah, looks good, looks
So-
good.
They would definitely do to be done. As far as the local recovery funding, as we talked about at the last meeting and had a public hearing, our application has been received, and we've actually received confirmation today that our check is in the mail, so to speak. And so we should have our first tranche of funding in the $225,000 area here in our bank account, hopefully within the next few days. I have reached out to the department heads to ask them to submit any requests that they feel qualifies for the funding program and needs that they have that could be offset, from either a budgetary standpoint of view or from a capital purchase standpoint of view. So we'll be putting that list together and have that available for the next board meeting for the board to look at and start talking about what the process will be for prioritizing that list and where we end up as we kind of work down through the 225 down to zero. But as I mentioned before, there's no strict time frame in terms of when the money has to be spent, other than by the end of 2024. So we've got some time. Yes, question?
Yeah, how comfortable are you that we understand the requirements in terms of how the money is spent? Are we pretty comfortable with that at this point?
There's still some gray areas, and I think as I mentioned once before, the state, through their GOFER, which is the Governor's Office of Recovery and I forget what the other acronym word is, but there's some pretty strong assistance that's very familiar with the program that we can reach out to and submit questions to, as well as potential uses that will either give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down or need more information request. So I feel pretty confident that we can certainly spend the money in accordance with what the Treasury guidelines are without getting ourselves into trouble.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah. So I'd still love to see us do another round of better solicited community input on that. And I don't know if it's a requirement on the town government side of things. I know it's a requirement on the school funding side in terms of their funding that's coming through. And if we wanted to do it and they're required to do it, maybe there's an opportunity to piggyback and do that as one big sort of input session if we were interested in doing that as a board. Is there a requirement for further community input on that?
No, the public hearing was a requirement
Yeah.
that we had in terms of the statute, but, as far as, future public input, certainly we can solicit that on a number of occasions or...
I'd really love to do that. I think, when free money arises, it's nice to have direct input from the taxpayers.
My suggestion, because obviously the taxpayers probably aren't going to educate themselves to the point of what qualifies and what doesn't,
Right.
that we formulate the list, the priority list, and then, you know, solicit public input at that point in time
I agree, that'd be great.
and get some feedback on that.
So Matt, what are you suggesting? Get the list together, then we look at it, and then have a public hearing, or how?
Yeah, I think if we can get department head input, do a, you know, a first run, we can look at that list and say, okay, here's our, as the board, top X number of priorities, and then bring that list to a public hearing, or, you know, a public forum, and say, here's our short list of projects that we're looking at for this funding. What would your priorities be? Just give folks a chance to, you know, and I think it would help us understand better, you know, whether people are looking for infrastructure versus, you know, enhanced first responder services. You know? I want to hear it straight from their mouths.
So my concern is that people won't go. So could we do like a survey or something on the website or on the town Facebook page? I mean, just so we get an idea.
Whereas
of
it's not a
people, you know,
requirement for this. We
Right,
can do
just to
however
get
we
ideas
want,
because,
right?
I mean, we had that, and one person was here. You know,
Right.
so
Right.
maybe we could push it out electronically.
How about we investigate that, and Walter, when we look at the list, give us some recommendations on what you think would be the best way to get the input.
Well, we had a newsletter, if
What?
only.
Yeah, oh, I was supposed to say that. Or Tim. Well, you know, shortly we'll have the new website. Maybe we do it there.
There you go.
Yeah, but I think you're right. The means of collecting input has changed, and, you know, let's make it as easy as possible. I think we have to be fair and be careful about having one person put 20 comments in, but, you know, we can deal with that,
Okay.
so. Okay. What else, Walter?
So we are awaiting the repairs to our town roads that were scheduled for this year. The contractor, last report we had, is scheduled to move in next week. They're working in the next town over, and they're supposed to be coming our way next, so obviously weather permitting. I'm sure they've probably been hampered a little bit with their schedule, and they'll be in town for about 3 weeks, and as soon as we have a definitive date and so forth, we will get that out to the public, and there'll also be notices posted on the individual roads just to let the local folks know that there could be some interruption, of traffic, but they typically don't close the road. They usually do one lane at a time. So hopefully that'll be convenient, except for when they do the tie-ins of driveways and things like that. Obviously, that could disrupt folks a little bit getting in and out. So that's good. That work will be done, I think, obviously in plenty of time prior to winter, so we don't have to worry about any concerns there.
Right.
And then, as I reported, we still haven't received any feedback yet from the Lions Club's interest in the school, center school building, but Rec Director Scott Blewett is still, pursuing that and trying to get some answers back so that he can formulate a plan for trying to utilize that building later on in the year, getting it spruced up and so forth. On the short term, and then obviously in the long term, try to get it, rebuilt to the point where it can be utilized more regularly and be preserved as well. So that's in process. And then as far as upcoming regular board
Hold on a
meetings.
second. I think.
You know what was on your list, but roadside mowing?
Yes, actually, the roadside mowing is starting next week. Did I miss it or just not put it on?
I don't think I
I didn't see it.
Okay, I got to.
I know they're starting on the west side this year, but
Yeah, they notified me yesterday, that's probably why it's not on the list,
Okay.
that they will be in starting next week, and
it would be worthwhile to have them hit Harmony Road. Any of the, I know the other two roads are at the east end, but is it worth having them do those roads so it gives the guys more room to
People paving.
work before paving?
not sure exactly what Chris has laid out for a schedule,
I
but
know they said we're supposed to do the west side this year from
Right.
basically Bull Lake Road that way, or
yeah. I
I
can
don't know if
men- I'll
any,
mention that.
limbs and trees need, brush need to be hacked out for the guys, make it easier for the pavers, so either way, something to think about. Not a big deal.
I'll mention it to Chris. Is there anything else?
No.
And just a meeting schedule, so the 14th and the 28th, obviously all non-emergency departments will be closed on Monday, September 6th for Labor Day, and I am planning on being on vacation from the 16th to the 27th, which is conveniently placed between our meetings. So I won't leave you stranded. No.
Thank you.
But that's, and I did want to mention one other thing that was not on the list that occurred yesterday, which you probably saw in the news about the theft of funds from the town of Peterborough in the amount of about $2.3 million. These guys are good. They obviously, represented themselves as a school district and made a very convincing request for a payment. And that payment obviously was initiated by the finance department of the town and then sent off to what they believed to be the school district, which turned out to be some foreign country. And that was immediately turned into some cryptocurrency that can't be recovered or traced at this point, as well as a couple of other AP requests that they received through and issued through the ACH process that obviously did not go to the contractor that they intended it to go to. So as of last night, I issued a directive to Cheryl and Sandy that we will no longer be issuing payments through the ACH process, specifically for the school and any other vendor by request. In other words, if it's something that we initiate, then I think that would be a safe process to continue. And we really the only other one that we use is actually, you saw it tonight, is the retirement system. But everything else will be paid by check now, including the payment to the school district. And we've worked that out with the treasurer of the school district and the treasurer of the town, as well as Cheryl. So again, we regularly get inquiries that are, I consider, of poor quality. You can usually identify, an inquiry that asks you to send money to a certain, location and so forth, or starts the process of determining who's in the office. Occasionally I'll get an email from somebody that's representing himself as Cheryl asking me if I'm in the office. Well, of course Cheryl knows if I'm in the office because it's right next door, but obviously, the folks in what other country they might be coming out of doesn't know that. So, and they're easily to identify, but obviously these guys were good and perfected this process. And one of the other things it leads to too is, the question of, transparency and what we put on our website and so forth and what's available to the public, obviously does open us up to a little more exposure for things like this. Because, when people look at the manifest, they know who we do business with, so I'm sure that's how this whole thing started with these folks, these criminals. And so I wanted to let you know that we did take this action immediately, and obviously we'll continue to do this probably for the long term, in order to just ensure that.
Mike, I saw that this morning. I figured you were on track. And
Yeah, it was pretty scary. I know the town administrator down in Peterborough quite well, and I could tell that it was really weighing heavy on her because we were notified, along with all the other towns that are insured by Primex, that they significantly dropped their coverage limit because they were unable to get reinsurance for those types of events at a reasonable cost, except at a much lower level than what they had in the past. So, it's possible that they could be on the hook, for that amount. But that's being looked at now. in terms of coverage, but
That's horrible.
again, just another reason to be more cautious and observant of what's going on. It's really a wake-up call for sure, so.
Well, glad you're on top of that. I guess that brings up the related question, about how we deal with our cybersecurity and our files and stuff like that. And I know you had done some work on that earlier. How do you think we'd fare on hackers and things like that, Walter?
We're doing well. Matter of fact, we just updated all our computers again last week. I think there was only 2 that didn't get updated, which includes program updates as well as security updates. We're still doing the final email updates. Matter of fact, we'll have to do the ones for the board as well. I'll have to work that out with Mainstay to figure out how the process can be done, but it just, the verification process of the town email account. So, but I think we're obviously staying on top of it and doing. You're never going to be 100% because everything keeps changing. So, but
Right.
I think Mainstay does a good job, and obviously communications with them. We did do a cyber assessment for Primex back in the spring, which was part of this process that I think led to them reducing their insurance coverage. But they were doing an analysis of all their covered entities and so forth to see where people were. So there's always a possibility of a correct, but we're doing our best to minimize any potential risk.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, if not, Walter,
I have a question on something else, though.
on the,
But not on that.
oh, I'm sorry, well, Beth first.
So I was curious about the painting of the library and the community center. I know that's been on the agenda for a while on your report. We can't seem to find anybody. Where are we advertising, and what other avenues can we do? Because it's been a while. It was supposed to happen last year, so now, it's just getting worse, and I'm afraid that we're gonna,
After
You could put
October
siding
1st, I
on.
think we ought to shut the window down, right? End of September, October is getting towards.
is it because of the lead? That's the whole thing?
Well, that's part of the problem. That's a big part of the problem with the community center, obviously, is that, even though it hasn't been confirmed that there's lead paint there, that's most likely, that there's lead paint there. So, so you can't have, the local yokel just
We're
paint
just
it.
presuming. How do we find out if there is lead? Is there like a lead
Well, it's gotta
test
be
we can do?
tested.
So can we get that tested? So if that's the whole thing about the lead, when we're not 100% sure, we're assuming that would
Go to the
be,
community center, they said.
he said he's assuming though.
Yeah, it's based on the age of the building, the number of times it's been painted and so forth. There's the probability is
Odds are
pretty high.
Right, right.
You know.
But other buildings in other towns are going to have lead as well. There's old buildings all around. We live in New England. So there must be a way. We're not doing the right avenue apparently because it's been out there. I'm not sure where. It's just on our website.
Well, we did when we did the initial RFP. We contacted specific companies throughout the area, and basically didn't get any positive responses at all. We didn't get any bids at all, and so now it's just been trying to contact people that have been suggestions basically from individuals. I know Steve Bailey, has solicited a couple of people.
Well-
Betsy, gave me a
Have we
name.
followed through with the prison program at Rockingham County?
Yeah, so, the prison program's not currently doing that now. I think the way it was explained was that, when COVID hit, they released all the good prisoners that worked to go back to work, and so the ones that are in prison now need to stay there
Yeah.
because they won't be capable, of completing a job like they did before. But I think the answer is, again, it's probably setting aside some time and just getting on the phone and calling the companies that we had touched base with back in the spring and see if there's any openings that may have come up.
Is that something that the department head can do?
I know Chris has had some names submitted to him, but I don't know what the status is of how he's made out with them.
Maybe what we got to
I'm
do,
just concerned that it's been a couple of years and
Have the
it's not
library
going to
Yeah.
happen again.
well,
The good news is the west side of the building, which is the east side, is going to get re-sided. So we're still working on getting that completed this fall as well, so,
wait, on this building?
no, on the community center.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
That's the
In
one.
the library, if that's not lead paint, you don't think?
I don't know about the library, because that's just trim. And,
I wonder if we could just put that out like locally. It must be like a smaller business local in town. I mean, I don't know.
yeah, we can break that off and do it separately, I
It's
guess.
looking pretty shabby.
Yeah, I know.
Well, maybe to your point, Walter, would it make sense to test and be definite about the lead, or do you think we're wasting our money to test because you're pretty sure it is?
Yeah, I think anybody they're going to have to be lead certified, the painter's going to have to be lead
Okay,
certified.
well,
Because it's also painting and reglazing the windows, right? That's part of the bid down there at the library? That was part of the,
I think so,
yeah.
yeah, that one's been around for a while. But
okay, well, listen, is this bid stuff, is this painting on your spreadsheet, your task list?
I believe it is.
Okay, let's discuss that when we get to the task list and see where we think that falls relative on the priorities. Because, I mean, it's not like he's, waiting for us to assign stuff to him. Let's
I
see what.
started on this, that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a good discussion, and if we think it bears more attention, let's talk to him about it and reshuffle some of the other things. We can't just add it on. Let's tell him what,
That's why I know if the department head could, make those phone calls.
Yeah.
If we had a list, we could just say,
yeah, so let's have that discussion.
Basically, we got 2 months to get it done.
Yeah, either 2 months to get it done, or if we can't, then really gear up so that we definitely have somebody starting first thing in the spring. In other words, get the effort, put it in, and make sure somebody's already lined up, and don't wait till the spring. Get them lined up
right.
now. So, okay. So so when we get to the task manager, Beth, let's
Thank you.
remind me, please. Okay, anything else? I thought there was two comments.
Did we skip over a quick update on the state park? Or did I just space out tonight? It's on your list. Just for the public's edification.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
So they got a letter.
I got,
It's so hard to
it got mixed up with my other dam.
Too many damn issues.
So the Meadow Lake Dam, I did reach out to the Director of Parks, Director Bryce, and he did respond and kind of directed us to their website where they have put together a public statement about the status and the issues and the plan to, at some point in time, restore the dam. So that is available on our website. I think we put it on Facebook, and
Yep.
so people can read the full detailed response.
Vagueness.
The full, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. We're looking into it.
Yeah, it's a big circle.
Yeah. Well, again, they recognize the value to the community and so forth, but I'm sure that's one of a million. But they did get a lot of money from the infrastructure funding program, so hopefully this will be on the list, seeing it's pretty short money.
It is important to our town.
It's like, Matt said last week, they come here, they walk in the park, they stop and get a coffee, they go up to Johnson,
Get
they're getting
gas,
gas. Every business is,
Sure.
so.
So I don't think it's just that. I think when they come in, they look around, some of these are, increasing our property values for us too,
Well, I
'cause
think
they-
and just for our own citizens, it's very valuable there. So we like it. We want to keep maintain it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a question of the board. Do we want to consider making a formal request to our state reps or maybe directly to the governor regarding attention to this? Is that appropriate, Walter? Or is that, will the,
Not above begging.
yeah, well, yeah, I guess what I was worried about was, will the folks that are working on it feel like we're going over their heads? What's your thoughts on that, Walter?
I mean, it never hurts to reach out to, the folks, that represent the community, in terms of, what the value is to, that part of the park and so forth. So, you certainly can, put something together similar to what was sent to the director.
From the Conservation Commission, just,
And,
anything to help, make a packet and send it along.
Yeah, maybe we can get something from them too, but let's at least start with some recommended letters from the board to.
Right. Because, I mean, the representatives and the governor, they have this much stuff to deal with,
Yeah,
That's important to us because it's down the street from us, so do they even know about it? So I don't think it's going to hurt to, apprise them of the situation.
Okay, well, if you're in agreement, our general consensus that we get a letter drafted, and maybe next time we can do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay. Okay, Walter, anything else on your list?
The only other thing I wanted to mention was that, obviously, I had a conversation with Bob Young earlier today about, what's going on COVID-wise in the community. Seems like we're topping the list now with the number of cases, active cases in the region with 12, I think his report stated. And he certainly thought it was time to consider, returning some of the protocols that were, employed before, especially in indoor public meetings. And so, that obviously would be something that, the board, again, the impact being that this new variant, even though people are vaccinated, they can obviously be carriers and carry it on to folks that may not be vaccinated, or if they are, might be, immune compromised. And so, certainly it's something to be aware of. I mean, I think the case numbers are up where they were back in April when we still had our policies in place. So, a lot of communities are having a similar discussion, and as much as people don't want to go backwards, the CDC guidelines, recommendations do encourage mask wearing in indoor public settings.
Questions on this? Anybody?
So I guess we were able to have, not just us, but like in general, meetings, via Zoom because the governor allowed that. So is this, so that wouldn't be up for an issue. It would be what, just having like masks and numbers of people in the room?
Yeah, I think, again, the guidelines still promote social distancing and still promote mask wearing when you're, in a closed public place.
So does the state allow us to meet via Zoom, or is that's gone, huh?
Yeah, that's based on what the vibes that we're receiving. That's not coming back because that comes under a state of emergency, and I don't think the governor's in any interest in returning to a state of emergency.
That's the only way we would get that back.
Yes.
So it's not an option for us to vote on.
Right.
Okay.
Before I feel bad, like we started limiting people that can come. Obviously the room is not really full, but at least when we were Zoom, it was open to everybody. I don't really feel comfortable just, okay, you can't come in, I don't know, I just...
Although the flip side, I have to say, is I'm getting a lot of good comments, in spite of the volume sometimes, that it's streaming live, and a lot of people like that.
Unless you have like you can phone in now, do a public comment. I don't know.
Well, that might be
we
something.
can do that.
I was just going to say, that might be something for us to consider, especially given what you said about getting public input on the recovery funds. Well, yeah, you know what, maybe that can be part of what we consider when we do that public input. Would that, okay. What else? Anything else on that?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, great. Well, appreciate everything you're doing to move us forward, Walter, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We still have a couple minutes, so I'm going to move on. We still have a couple minutes until 7 o'clock for the public hearing, so I'm going to move on to the town-owned property sale. Walter, do you want to, we tasked you with a couple things last time. You want to give us an update?
So, as I provided in the packets, we had decided that we would, if manageable, would go ahead and do the abutter offering in-house. And again, with Carol's great assistance, we've been able to put that together. And so, for the most part, we are ready to go ahead and issue those letters. I did consult with town council about the process, just to get their blessing. And one thing that came up that was a recent change in statute was having to do with selling property with structures on them. And the fact that, again, dealing with the wisdom of the legislature, the amendment that allows the town to sell the property via sealed bid to the certain group or to utilize a realtor, which was part of the amendment of the statute. They specified vacant land. So that means that unless it's vacant, it has to go to public sale and has to be open to everybody. So the ones that we had included are mainly ones that are down on Lucas Pond area. And I think everybody's familiar with those buildings, but for the most part, they're barely standing. In some cases, they're not standing at all, but they're piles of rubble. So, one of the possibilities is to, remove those buildings, perhaps with the assistance of the fire department. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to the chief about that yet because he's been away. But there's 4 properties on the list that have some type of structure on them. Some of it's a shed, and some of it's as they say, a collapsed building and a collapsed mobile home. I mean, they're really, but, based on the advice of council, we have to be aware that those are structures, so therefore, we would have to just include those properties in the auction in October versus trying to get them to the abutters so that they can be merged and no longer be existing lots.
So if Mark, or the fire department does not want to do a control burn on those 4 pieces of property, it would just go on the other list. And then
Yes.
the abutters would still have the opportunity to buy it.
That's correct. Yep.
And they'd still be notified by the auctioneer and stuff, so.
Also, if you're going to buy that land, you can take the building down. I don't want to pay for take the building down.
Well,
too-
if it's a control burn, though,
I know, for
the
them,
department
yeah.
would use that as a training.
But there's
So
so much,
when-
the shingles got to come off and half the stuff, like when they did the
right, there's a lot of work to control burn.
I'm leery of doing it so close to when we want to sell this stuff.
Okay.
I personally am interested in moving this forward, and like you said, Beth, they get the shot at it. It's just a little bit different. No, they won't get the first shot at it. They'll get a shot at it.
Yeah.
There's 4, yeah.
They'll get a shot at it just like the abutters don't get first shot at it. They get an equal shot at it.
Right.
Then we roll these 4 right into the big list. Moving on.
So, okay, so we've discussed this a little bit. Do we want to make a formal directive to Walter on this? Is that what you need, or are you okay?
Yeah, just, again, I wanted to present the
I think
facts and,
it's easier for us
For
to
legal
put them on the
wise and
other
everything
list.
else, put them on the other list and let them,
And move forward.
And realistically,
The
people aren't
problem-
going to be fighting each other for
Right.
a 2/10 of an acre
With a,
non-conforming lot
Right.
with a falling down structure on it. So it's going to be the abutters who
it's gonna be
who are
the-
interested in it.
Right.
So
okay,
I got
so,
no problem just moving it into the other process.
This print is super small.
yeah. You can expand it. There's a magnifier. While she's looking, Jim, how do you feel?
No, I agree, just.
Moving
the
forward?
easiest- Yeah, just move 'em over.
Okay.
It's the easiest way to deal with it.
Sounds like we have consensus, Walter.
That's fine. Very good.
Let's get it done.
4 less things on your list, Walter. Keep moving them after.
4 less stamps.
And Walter, just to, and this is one of those weird sticking points for me, but are we also making sure that we're reaching out to folks across the street, not just side to side? I think on those small lots especially, that's really important because there's folks, especially down around like Lucas Pond, who would love to be able to put up like for some of them, it's the difference between a septic plan and no septic plan.
Well, I think the intent was that we would
Technically, butters.
want them to merge, make it a condition of the sale to merge, and obviously you can't merge if you're across the street. So I guess that's another question that should be posed, I guess.
But isn't that legally wise? I mean, like, even though that's a state road in front of, Matt's house, he owns out to the yellow line, his neighbor across the street owns out to, it's like the right of way for the state, so isn't that, like,
Be careful on that. I think we own the road.
Yeah, but you,
town owns the road, we don't
Yeah.
maintain it?
we own the property that
own the property.
the road is on, so,
We don't maintain those roads.
But all of these properties are either in Harvey Lake Estates or down by, on like Lower Camp Road.
yes.
There's two of the 4 are on Harvey, so there's Oak Street and Ash Street.
Yeah.
Those aren't town-maintained roads, those are private roads.
Right, but they're still recognized as individual lots on either side of the street. They're deeded that way, described that way, and so forth.
We can't combine across the street, but you can combine side by side.
Right, the front to back, side to side.
I mean, chances are the abutter's gonna, I'm looking at that.
Like, Master, who's gonna,
There's no
I-
well, no septic, it's this big.
I have to say, Matt, my recollection of the Harvey Lakes Estates is the roads might be privately maintained, similar to the one I live on, but the town owns the road. Because we own, like Shore Drive and stuff like that, that's town property. So, I'm only saying that because that could affect
Sure,
what
yeah.
you're talking about. I mean, I understand what you're saying, like when we do planning board stuff, all abutters, including people diagonally across and, any which way are notified. I would say, from my perspective, as a minimum, I'd like everybody to be told they're going up for sale so that, if it turns out we're auctioning them off instead, then certainly at least the folks that you're talking about would have a chance at that. I'd just be very careful about promising them that they can't.
Right, they're telling them they can or cannot.
Yeah, combine them. That's the worry I have. So, do we still have the same directive though for Walter then, or?
Put those 4 or 5 on the other list and move on.
Yeah, let's just
But
make
now,
sure.
the thing about the people that live across the street, I think, they could not combine it, so they'd be paying 2 separate, sections of property tax,
Yeah, it becomes,
But, I mean, if it came down to they couldn't do a septic or a well, they're not gonna mind paying the extra $1,000.
Pay that and dig across,
No.
more across the road, so what's,
Okay. So Walter, are you comfortable with the direction we're giving you?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to roll this forward then, and do we need to decide on a firm date with the auctioneer? Or is that set now?
This is going to be done in-house.
No, I mean
Oh, we've already done that.
Okay, the 16th is set then?
Yep,
Okay,
October?
yeah.
yes. Yep.
Okay, so you're rolling forward on the ones we just discussed, excluding the 4 that we can't. And then the new list will go to the auctioneer. He'll start working that list, and on the 16th of October, we have the auction. Are you still working on the venue?
Yes,
Okay. Let us know when you've sorted that out.
I will.
Okay. Anything else on the town-owned property sale? Okay. Walter, really appreciate you moving this forward. This has been a long time in coming, and I'm glad it's going to be done.
We're getting there.
And Carol, thank you for Carol,
Yes,
too.
Carol. Okay, I'm going to move now on to the public hearing related to the rate changes to our ambulance services. Walter, what's the protocol for doing this? I know we have the list here. Do I need to read it, or do you need to read it, or do we just say it was posted and ask for input?
Yeah, I just think it was, we posted it, and if you want to read them, that's fine, but,
You know what, I'm not going to read them, but I will say this. Mark did an analysis of the 52 communities that...
Mark would be,
Oh, Mark Tetrault, our fire chief, thank you, did a survey using the people, Comstar, that do all the billing for the 52 communities. And basically what he's recommending is that we set our rates to be within a very few dollars of what is the average across those 52 towns. And so that was that's the basis for that. So we're basically right with these rates within, I'm looking here, within $5 of all the averages here, actually within $3 of all the averages of those 52 towns. So we're not at the high end, not at the low end, we're right at average. So at this point, with that information and what was posted, I see one member of the public. Tim, would you like to speak? Oh, okay, well, yeah, good seeing you. Okay, and did anybody write in? Did anybody mail in?
I have no comments that came in.
Okay, if that's the case, then I'm taking it that there's no further input. Walter, do we need to vote on these then?
If you close the public hearing, then you can vote.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to close, oh, Beth, I'm
I
sorry.
think that we need to make sure that people are aware that if it's a financial hardship, we do have avenues for that too, so.
That is actually a good point. Yeah, if people are struggling with this, they're, usually the insurance pays it, and that's part of what forms the basis for these charges. But yes, if people have trouble, they definitely need to contact us here, contact Walter
We still want you to
directly.
call the ambulance if you need it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is absolutely correct. Call, and then we will deal with your financial issues separately.
Right, this is just what we're billing the insurance company.
Essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because Medicare, Medicaid,
But some people,
they get different
they
rates
hear
and
that,
stuff.
They get worried, it's like, I don't want
Yeah.
no one to worry, still, if you need the ambulance,
We'll
call.
deal with it.
Right.
Well, that's what I wanted
We'll-
to say, this is a billing for the insurance company.
Essentially,
And if
yes.
there's a leftover, then we'll handle it.
Good. I think that was a great point, Beth. Thank you. Okay, so the hearing is officially closed. Now I'm looking for a motion to adopt the proposed billing rates.
so moved?
And do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the proposed billing rates? Thank you.
You.
5-0, Walter.
As of right now, bang, right, retroactive?
Oh, wait, we had to talk about that. We did say that, we were gonna give it a date. So
Oh.
was it gonna be January 1st, didn't Mark,
I think it says immediate, didn't
was
it?
it immediate?
I forget what the chief said.
There was something, we talked about that.
I think that was the recommendation. Obviously, they have to be incorporated into the,
I think I said
Billing
it's the
system.
billing cycle, right? So
Yeah.
it couldn't be like tomorrow, it had to
immediate,
be
it's the
whenever
next-
the new cycle starts.
we can say October
amendment,
1st
yeah.
or something.
Okay, so how about an amendment to say it's on the next billing cycle?
So moved?
And a second on that?
Second.
Okay, now another vote? Okay, great. Thank
Oh,
you.
Good, yeah, just make sure it,
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Okay, so we've taken care of that. Next up is the amendment to the purchasing policy. Walter, do you want to just give us the highlights on that, please?
Yeah, just to coincide with the discussion and the vote that the board had at the last meeting about increasing the purchasing authority for the town administrator, I've simply increased the amount from $2,499.99 to $999.99 in both for Category 2 as being the limit.
Yeah, so this is basically the same policy as we reviewed earlier with just that change.
Exactly.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do. A few. On page 41, section 8,
On page,
and it's just probably more for clarification, under section 8 where it talks about purchases over $10,000,
yes.
can we clarify what it means by extenuating circumstances that occur where the selectmen can determine if that's maybe just like an example would be helpful? What is that really referring to?
That's a good question. I guess I will say this. I'm a little bit worried about trying to define that too rigidly, or even trying to define it. I personally would prefer to see it be the board that's trying to make that decision at that time as to what they define as a extenuating circumstance, because they may.
If Bow Lake Road gets washed out because of the hurricane,
Right, I
then
mean,
we're not going to meet.
well, but,
I mean, that's why I kind of, and we don't see it coming. I mean, the dam breaks and floods out 15 people. We might have to. I mean,
right,
I don't,
so could we do a vote
Is
via?
Yeah, that's what I mean,
telephone?
just an example of,
I mean, that's
just
why I
for
kind of
clarity.
understood it. I mean, am I?
Right, but if you put that as an example, someone else might think that this is something different, could be, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say.
So it's something we're going to come and talk about.
I think it's better to have that open discussion rather than us trying to define it for some future board and then they find out, oh, geez, you didn't define it right and now we got a problem.
Yeah, it's not a definition, just a clarification,
The
just
goal's
kind
been
of.
this for 10 years.
Well, this one was in place for a while.
43.
But I guess, I think it's better to discuss it at the time because, think about it. You could try to define it as any circumstance where there's, serious monetary issues that you might face. Well, what does that really mean? And I think it's better for an elected board to have that discussion and state it publicly rather than sort of hide behind a definition, in my mind.
No, I think what Tim said was real helpful. There could be things that just pop up,
yeah.
and that's what I mean. That's all. And then, does this exception also apply to the police commission and the trustees, the library trustees? Because I see in the category above it, they're mentioned there, but they're not mentioned in this category.
What do you think on that?
Because again, what else did I put here? And the last question was, what are the consequences for violating the policy?
Well, let's deal with the first one.
Okay. So again, we mentioned the police commission and the library trustees in section 7, but they're not mentioned in section 8.
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing I worry about is if they do something, at least, let me just say it this way. Like the last time, the police chief came in, talked with us about...
Didn't have to, it was courtesy.
Yeah, and as long as people are maintaining that courtesy, because what if they spend $50,000 and we're in a default budget this year and
Right.
running out of money? I mean, that's where I hesitate a little bit on the higher level values. But if other folks feel we should afford them the same rights because they are a voted-in entity, I wouldn't oppose that. I mean, how do we feel about that? I mean, Walter, can you give
Well,
us...
I didn't know if these policies just refer to us and if they have their own as a trustee board and the police commission, but if that's the case, they were still mentioned in 7. It just seemed a little...
Inconsistent?
Yeah, that's all. That's why I was just bringing it up.
Yeah, no, let's, Walter, what do you think?
Well, again, this is a purchasing policy to go through. We do the purchasing for the library and for the and for the police department, obviously. So this is part of that process by which, we process their purchases, basically. And I think in order to do them, we need to, as it says, they have to be approved by these separate entities if they're for their specific groups. Like for the library, the trustees of the library have to approve the purchases in excess of, $5,000 up to $9,000, just like the police commission has to approve them for the,
Well, it like
for the
says
police
over
department.
10, it got to go to the budget committee and a town meeting. That's what I mean, and then it mentions us, if there's an exception, we can, on those extenuating circumstances, but what about the police department and the library? That's what I mean. Do they have to follow the same process? Can they, we had that hubbubaloo about vehicles or whatever, not going through the budget committee or a town meeting. So that's what I mean. Can they do that, or should that be put in there, or it just seemed inconsistent because, like Hal said, it was mentioned in 7 but not in 8. So I didn't know. I'm just looking for that consistency or clarification, or if this even pertains to them. When I was reading it, it just seemed we are mentioned there about how to function in Section 8, but no one else was.
Well, what do we think? What do we want to do here?
Or do we have the authority to put them in there? I don't know.
Up above, it says police department trustees, other departments, boards, committees, part. So, I mean, would we just put the same sentence?
Yeah, I
Where
can-
it's listed out there for 7.
If they can make a decision because of an extenuating circumstance, we might want to put them in there.
Like I said, I'm a little bit leery about the over in the 10,000 and over. That's the part that worries me because
Well, yeah.
because they might, the police commission might have the right to do that, as does the library. But if they exert that right, I mean, just as an example, and spend $300,000, I'd like to have a little say as the select board because we, from an overall perspective, are responsible for bringing in the overall budget. And so I understand the inconsistency, but I personally, having responsibility for the overall budget, am reluctant to let somebody have that much free reign over something I
That's
can't
okay. That's
control.
what I don't understand the entire process yet. I'm learning it, so.
Well, we're all working through it, Jim.
Right, but I mean, if I would agree with you, somebody kind of needs to have that overall say. According to what I see here, the budget committee in a town meeting has the overall say. We have a say if there's an extenuating circumstance.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about what if the library decides, like I heard, they want to buy solar panels or something for 18 grand. Can they just go out and buy it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think I'd
Right,
like to avoid
and
that.
if they can't, or we oversee that, it just seemed gray to me there. It didn't seem real clear on that piece.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, if I could, it's the selectmen are charged with managing the budget. The police department doesn't have a separate budget that was approved by the voters, and the library doesn't. It was all
Okay.
included in the operating budget and the capital budget that's overseen by the selectmen. So it really would, at the end of the day, as to Hal's point, would have to be something that the select board would have the final say on.
Okay.
Because of their responsibility for the total bottom line. So I would agree with what Hal is stating.
No,
is
okay,
that
that's fine, yeah.
That's really what
That clears
should
it up.
happen.
In the extenuating circumstances, that would be like if there's a tornado and the roof's taken off. Well, that would still be, they would come to us, be like, the roof's gone, so.
Okay.
And then there was another point that you wanted to make?
Yeah, just what happens if somebody violates policy? I didn't see kind of any,
Tar and feather?
Well, there's, well, first off, I will just say publicly, with Walter and Cheryl here,
I think
I
everybody
don't
get
see,
along.
I don't think it's going to happen, you know, so that's the first thing I'd say.
Right, but we're also writing this for the next decade or two.
Yeah, I just didn't see any kind of consequence if this policy is violated,
They don't get reelected is really all it is.
Well, I don't think there wouldn't be any penalty for the select board because it would take a majority vote, which would, stand of the board. In terms of personnel, if personnel violates the policy, then obviously there's ramifications, within the
Okay.
personnel policy handbook that, states that, violations of town policy have certain circumstances and so, certain ramifications for violating. So, that would be the, the case. It would be part of a performance assessment, basically.
Right, it'd be like performance improvement plan or whatever, if it's a recurring problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and then I had under section 12, does that apply to the police and library too? Do these purchases apply? Because again, what I'm learning is there's like separate entities, but now I'm understanding, okay, as the select board, we're still over the entire budgeting process, so we still do have that oversight.
Yes.
So I think that's, I didn't quite understand that fully when I was reading this and going over it. So, and I think, and this might just be me, on page 43, section 13.2, where it says all purchases shall be subject to the reservation of the right by the town to accept or reject any and all bids. You mean the town as in the town, not like a town vote type thing, where it has to go to town vote?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought, it just,
Yep.
It's like the paving bids, we could not want any of them.
Yeah, we get the free paving bill, we should know, we don't want anybody to start over, that's all us.
okay. Yeah, no, that's just, that was all I had, just kind of coming from it from my inexperienced eyes. I'm getting
no,
there.
I thought that was good questions. I mean,
The whole-
we had some good discussion on that, so thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, no, I just wanted some clarification. Because if we put it out as a policy, maybe someone else will read it that way and say, well, I don't quite understand what that means. Okay.
Well, this policy is so important and it really covers a lot of stuff like that. We need to definitely, once these policies are out, how do you get them to everybody? To the staff, to committees, the boards, like,
Department heads, they sign
Department-
off
I
on
mean,
them.
yeah.
everybody
Oh, they
signs
get
it.
distributed. They get distributed to the
right, so
to the
everyone will know
departments.
the policy.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it would be based on who would have purchasing power, basically, authorization.
Okay.
That would be great that they know.
Right. Yeah, I was just worried about the bigger numbers and the other two entities that do that. But if we oversee the entire thing that way, then I'm good with that. Because, the buck kind of stops here with us, even though if somebody else messes up, they look at us and, so that's all.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Thank
I
you.
thought those were thoughtful questions, so thank you. Any other thoughts?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised purchasing policy as presented.
Second, any further discussion? I looked over at Walter, but, sorry, Walter. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Right?
Great. So thank you for that, Walter. How many policies and procedures are we up to now? You are really cranking through these babies.
Little at a time. There's a big, thick book of them, so.
Okay. We're going to move on to new business. Appointment to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. Walter, you want to go over that with us, please?
Yeah, so in a letter that was directed to the board that I believe you have a copy of,
Yes.
it states that RSA 36:46- Roman numeral 3, and as laid out in the SRPC bylaws, Stratford Regional Planning Commission bylaws. Each municipality that becomes a member of the commission shall be entitled to 2 representatives. And it talks about what the qualifications are, and the term of the office of representative and alternates on this commission shall be for 4 years. When a municipality joins or rejoins the commission, initial appointment shall be for 2 years and 4 years. So, because the population of Northwood, as reported in the 2010 census, was 4,241, the town of Northwood is entitled to 2 representatives, and their records indicate that Scott Martin's appointment term expired on April 30th of 2021. So, right now, his term is expired, and if the board wishes to reappoint him or someone else, then we need to fill out a form and get that off to the commission.
Where does this April 23rd, 2025, next to Scott's name come up?
Well, that would be if he's reappointed.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep.
does
Yeah, I
he
had the
want
same
to?
question.
He wants to do it, continue on?
I am not aware. I,
Ask Scott Martin.
Yeah, we better ask first, and if not, find somebody that's really interested, because I know it's,
again, I wouldn't, for these types of things, I don't presume that the board wants to reappoint anybody. So that's why I bring it to the board first, and then get direction about, how the board wants to handle it.
well, I think, well, what other folks think? I'm sorry.
They give him a call?
Yeah,
Text him right now if we want.
yeah.
I personally, I appreciate Mr. Martin and what he has brought to the town over the years. He's one of our greatest conservationists in town. I think he's a fine representative to that commission. If he wants to stay in that position, I personally would be happy to see him.
Anybody disagree? Okay, so it sounds like we're asking you to contact Scott and confirm if he wants to be reappointed,
Okay?
and if
You
not,
You can reappoint him subject to his acceptance, too, if you want to go ahead.
whoa,
do it.
I like that.
Do
Yeah,
this.
that gets it leaning the right way. Matt, you want to make a motion?
Yep, I'll move to appoint Scott Martin to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission,
Subject to his
subject to his
acceptance.
acceptance.
Any paperwork's got to be signed? Mr. Johnson can take care of it? Second?
Okay, and discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Terrific, good idea. Good idea. I
And if he
forget-
declines, obviously, I'll bring it back at the next meeting for
Right,
other nominations or considerations or whatever.
terrific. Terrific. Okay, next up is the acceptance of the Emergency Management Performance Grant for $4,000. You want to, oops, I'm sorry. You want to
Okay, good.
go over that first, Walter, and explain?
Yes, so as we talked briefly before the meeting, the town is required under FEMA regulations to have an emergency operation plan, and that's this big book right here. Deals with a number of different processes and procedures and a wealth of data about the community that is a reference guide that the select board and the emergency management director refer to in the event of an emergency in the community. And, it's made up of a lot of delegation of responsibilities based on the particular qualifications of either department or department members in terms of leading certain tasks, like everything from managing shelters to communications to resources, managing resources, requesting resources, all those things that you might run up against when you are involved in a community emergency. And again, whether that's, an ice storm or a major snowstorm that cripples the community for multiple days, long-term power outages, those types of things, that's when this plan would be referenced. The emergency management director would step in and take on managing the emergency in the community along with the select board. And the select board obviously has the ultimate responsibility to protect the community. So the plans are, need to be updated, typically reviewed and updated every 5 years or so, because things change, situations change, personnel change, that type of thing. So there's a process by which, once the grant's been approved, there's a consultant that's hired to work through the update process with department heads, committee board members, select board, emergency management director, et cetera, to update the plan to make sure that that's reflecting, what the community and how the community wants to respond now versus when it was last updated. And so it's usually about a 3 or 4 month process, a series of meetings, and again, with the consultant kind of leading the way and managing the process, compiling the plan as they go along and so forth in order to come up with the end product. So our Bob Young applied for a emergency management performance grant from the state of New Hampshire, which it appears that we are qualified for. It hasn't been awarded yet, but it's a 50-50 grant, and we are responsible for 50% as a town. That can be either in cash or in kind, which typically, because of all the staff and board members' time, has a value, and that's calculated into the match process. So it's possible that we would match in our entire 50% in time, but it may also have some financial responsibilities at the end of the day. But so the total estimate for updating the plan is $8,000, and the grant is for $4,000. And so part of the process, so that this can be submitted to the Governor's Council for approval, is to have the Select Board acknowledge the responsibilities of the grant application, which I provided you, and the grant agreement, and to vote on that, and then it'll get submitted to the state, and hopefully sometime in the future it'll get approved, and then the process will start. So that's kind of in a nutshell what it's about.
Questions, Matt?
So can we assume that the consultant fee is around that $4,000 mark
Oh, no, it's 8,000.
for the consultant?
Yes.
So then our match couldn't be entirely in kind. We'd have to have cash match plus
Well, they would.
whatever then we're eating from a time perspective.
Where's that
Correct.
4,000 come from?
Right, well, we have money set aside. We would be, again, able to use our payments to our staff and for time and so on and so forth would be our cash match, and so the contract would be covered by the grant, basically.
So I just want to be clear on it for folks watching. So it's a $4,000 grant requiring
It's,
a match.
that's right, yep.
If the consultant fee is $8,000, that's all of that money. That's 100% of those funds. So we're talking $4,000 in grant money, $4,000 in cash match to pay the consultant.
Right, and our cash can be presented in kind towards the grant, the total grant.
So do they actually pay the consultant $8,000?
Yes. Or, again, unless we don't meet our match, and then we would,
So they're paying the $8,000. We can come up with our match in kind.
right.
That's where my confusion lay.
So they're paying the 8,000, so we can do the 4,000 worth of
Great, yeah.
trade.
Perfect. Great.
Or a combination of cash and,
My confusion was more thinking that,
I was
we
thinking
have
it
to
was
lay out that
plus another,
8.
yeah.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
right? So 4 plus 4 is 8,
Yeah.
and
I
then
got
we
you.
were out of money.
Yeah.
There was no
Oh.
in-kind.
Yeah.
So,
I got
perfect, great.
Yeah, sorry about the confusion on that.
Well, other questions? Beth?
I have a question. I had asked last meeting, you were talking about at the elementary school, but I was wondering if we asked Co-Brown because they do have the generator and the tap and the showers. So, you
That's what I
know,
was worried about too. Yeah.
so, you said you were going to talk to Bob. Were you able to touch base with him about that or not yet?
No, I haven't. Actually, I got a meeting with him about that in the school, hopefully
Okay.
later this week.
Okay, well, you can watch for that in your next report.
Yes.
Other questions? Jim?
So when was that last updated?
I don't have, this one here is 2011, but I think it's been updated.
It was because...
I don't have a copy of it, but I think it was 2015.
So I guess when they update it, what are they actually updating? I'm wondering, you know,
The information that's in here, obviously, I mean, it changes, whether it be a list of resources, contractors, obviously, select board members change, staff members change.
okay, so information and resource information.
Big directory, basically.
And they also could be changes in the federal guidelines for, managing disasters, for reimbursement for
Okay, so
disaster
it's
losses,
more
those types
enough
of things.
informational type updating thing.
Yeah. It's
Well,
a,
that
And
plus
the 8,000 will cover that entire update.
yeah.
Okay, so when we do match in kind, in a sense, we're still paying our folk to do the work they need to do. So
Sure.
it still is,
Yeah.
we're still paying something per se.
Yeah, exactly. We have to pay for their staff
Right.
time, obviously.
For the time on our end.
Yeah.
Do we have a guarantee that they'll take that, or could it still cost us some money?
Take what?
The in-kind,
Well, that's part of the process, yes. Yeah.
okay, because it just said cost 50% applicant share, and I just assumed they were looking for that money, because it says that we would pay the state, didn't it? Agrees the total by the state shall be up to 4,000.
Yeah.
if we don't cover it with the labor,
Right, so if we assigned it to like the highway department to do something, they're gonna get paid regardless out of their regular pay. So
Right.
we
Yep.
would just say, okay, they worked, 17 hours
Sorry.
for that $4,000.
I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, so, Walter, is Stratford Regional Planning going to do the work?
No, I don't believe so.
Who will do the work?
I think there's some, boy, you had to ask.
He'll have that answer when he talks to Bob tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
Bob's the one who's,
Okay. But it's not Stratford Regional, because
No.
the reason I ask
They did
is,
our COG and stuff.
I thought when they did the update, I saw Jim Burdine here, and that's why I'm asking, because they are up to here with work.
Yeah,
And
no,
if it's
it's not.
them, I don't think we're going to get them.
there's 2 or 3 different companies in the state that do this type of work specifically.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I can't tell you right off the top of my head. I know we talked about it, but
Okay.
I can't tell you off the top of my head who it is.
Okay, so just to recap, the state is going to pay $8,000 to the contractor. We need to make up half of that in kind,
Or borrowing that cash.
or yes. Now, given what I remember and saw from them doing the last update, I really don't have a doubt that our people are going to be spending enough time to cover that $4,000. Because there's actually quite a bit of effort that goes into it. And Jim, to that point, it's not just personnel changes and things like that. If things within the town have changed, changes to the way the school operates or changes to the school itself or things like that, that all gets updated and incorporated. So it's actually a hefty list of work. So I can't say this with 100% certainty, but my recollection is the last time we did this, we well exceeded our match in terms of time that went in. So personally, I'm pretty comfortable with this. But others, if you have questions. Okay. So then we need meeting minutes showing that we have accepted the terms of the grant. Is somebody willing to make a motion to indicate that we are accepting those terms?
But also, it says on the next page, if we have one person sign it, make sure it's
Yeah, you need to authorize me.
authorize you and the seal and notary justice and all that. It's all you.
Okay. So the motion would be then to accept the terms of the grant and authorize Walter to sign and handle any other things related to that. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. That's 5-0 also.
One more thing stacked on Walter.
Well, that's what we pay him for.
And
Okay.
vacation in a few weeks.
Don't worry. This
Okay.
is due well before that.
Okay, we're moving on to the yard sale policy. Walter, do you want to walk us through that, please?
So, as you know, we require people that have a yard sale have a permit. We charge them $2 a day for every day they have their yard sale. And I've got some comments, as you probably see, that I sent you from Linda Smith, our land use specialist, about some of the history regarding why it was enacted, and it seems like that perhaps it's time to look at whether or not this policy is still relevant. Year to date, I think we've issued about 19 of these permits, and they do consume, staff time, and obviously people do have to come in and, fill out the applications and pay their $2 and so forth. So, I guess, again, like all other policies, it was just a time to maybe take a look at it and see if it should be modified or rescinded, or if we should leave it in place. I reached out to both, Chief Drolet and Chief Tetro about, their opinions, and they really don't have an opinion one way or another about whether, it's valuable to them. Because if it's an issue that, is a traffic concern or parking or something like that, the police are going to get called anyway, whether there's a permit or not. So just something to look at. Again, there's another policy of whether or not we should look at it, amending it. I think it might be wise to keep something in place if it is, one of these multiple neighborhood properties, that would be, or, I know they have a community-wide one, I guess, or just had it, or it's coming up this weekend or something, down at Johnson's. So maybe we want to look at keeping something in place for those type of, mega yard sales, but the individual one single property type, it might be worth just letting people off the hook on that.
I know, like Deerfield has like a town-wide yard sale. I don't know how that applies. You travel the whole time. One Saturday in September, everybody has stuff out for sale. But I
We
don't
did
know.
that a few years ago here. It was on a Beanhole Batch Day, remember? The rec department did, so you went through the rec department and they did the permit stuff for you, to make it a little bit easier.
That was kind of a special event.
Yeah, that was like a good thing. Yeah, and so I'm just curious, how are they going to get to the police department? Before, so they had to be delivered to the police department by Friday, so we're just going to do this, just scan it and then email it right over as soon as it happens?
That's how we do it now. Yeah. Again, a little bit of old
Yep.
history.
I personally think that we should just
I think one of
rescind
the
it altogether.
recommendations-
Yes, sir.
And I think, the key for us is to maintain control from an ordinance perspective over safe traffic practices. So if you're double parking on a major thoroughfare, that's an issue, whether it's for a yard sale or a house party or a
Whatever, right, exactly.
So, and I understand the historical thing that got us there. I just don't, I don't think it's necessary at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's necessary even for the larger ones. It's the same thing. If they're blocking traffic or something,
Right.
the police will come and they'll deal with the safety issue. And, people learn and
The
they,
yard sale permit altogether?
well, that's what I was going to ask. Is this an ordinance
I
or is
did
this a
have one yard sale
policy?
back in 2009. No.
I'll give you $2 back, yeah.
It's actually a procedure. you know.
Procedure?
Yeah, or a process.
Okay, so it doesn't go to the town for a vote or anything like that?
No.
So if another select board felt strongly about it, they could put it back in?
There you go.
Or if the issues come back up, right? Okay, I'm sensing a motion here.
I make a motion, we rescind the yard sale, what do we call it? Policy?
Procedures.
Procedures,
Adopted in 1998.
adopted in 1998.
Hey, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of rescinding the policy?
Wait, I have questions. I guess we do a
Oh,
discussion. Wait.
okay, hold on, discussion.
Yeah. How does the police chief feel about that?
You just said.
Indifferent. They were both indifferent.
Worrying with that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just like making sure, we were talking about rescinding it before.
No, no.
Now we're talking about getting rid of it.
He just doesn't know.
Okay, all right.
He's gonna make
He
more.
asked,
Okay.
he asked
gonna
their
make more
opinion and they didn't
people
have one
come
either
by.
way.
He doesn't have one either way.
All right.
You all set now?
Yeah.
Yep,
We
Steve?
weren't talking about rescinding it, we were reviewing it, now it's like,
Yeah, well, now we're rescinding.
Now we're rescinding.
All right.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
5-0.
We appreciate Linda's comments.
Yeah, I think that was good. Then, I
Yeah,
mean,
they
she
were good.
outlined the reasons and stuff. It's
Thank you, Linda.
very, very persuasive. Okay, we're going to move on to task manager. And Beth, what was the item again, please?
painting of the community center.
Okay,
and
so
the-
let's take a look. Where was that on the list?
I don't think it's on the list, actually, now that I look at it. It may have gotten dropped off.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is obviously a blend of, or there's a thought process to this. Do you put every gosh darn thing that we assign to you on here? I don't think so. So I think that's part of the
No,
question.
Just get too small to read it all.
Yeah,
That's my
I
process.
already have it zoomed.
yeah. So I guess really, maybe let's take this a different perspective. Is anything on this list that we have here, relatively speaking, more important to us or less important to us than the painting? Because if it is, we can insert the painting somewhere on this list. So I'm just going to take a look, and I'm just going to tell you my opinion. You know, like I would not change the priority on the auction. I mean, I want that right up there.
That's going,
You know, so just start at the top of the list. You know, we already made a big deal about the policies and
We're
ordinances.
not saying, the auction, we could take the abutters off of that list and give it all to that one company.
But then it becomes an auction as opposed to letting them have a shot at it. And I think that's a little bit further step than I'm willing to take. But if, you know,
No, I'm just saying that we do, there's an option, it's not taking it off the list, it's taking it off of Walter's plate.
right, and I'm saying, taking it off the plate, the auctioneer is not willing to do that process. He's only willing to auction. So if I would only entertain that for discussion if the rest of the board felt that that was an option they wanted to consider. I mean, is it, or?
No, I'm okay, I'm just saying that it wasn't,
You could kick the center school down to recreation.
Yeah, I mean, coming from you, that's a reasonable,
Yeah, I think,
would that help,
handing
Walter?
that off to Scott and then have, the suggestion that Scott come to the commission for help in that process, whether it's meeting with Norm or the folks from Lions Club and whatever else. I think that can probably happen at a department level.
Well, since you're talking about that, it says medium at the Walter and Facility Committee. So I was going to ask, the Facility Committee and the Highway Committee, is that still really a valuable committee now that we have a department head that's responsible for those departments? I know we were going to talk about doing committees, but it was brought to me because we haven't been meeting because we haven't had anything brought to us. So now that we have a department head responsible, before we didn't have a department head responsible, it was kind of like, that's what we had, all these different committees. So just something to put in our back of our heads before,
Yeah.
you're putting it on a committee that doesn't really meet because we're not tasked anything.
Well, I still would like to wait and see what Walter comes up with relative to committee day and I think there are some things, I understand what you're
We haven't
saying.
met, and we're going to be expected to present something for the budget, and we've had nothing presented to us to discuss.
Right, so in this case, we won't, hold them on to that,
Well, some
but
of these things we can cross right off, because
some of them are done.
yeah.
There's a lot list is complete, and then a couple we checked off tonight, so.
Yeah.
They stay on for 1 week completed, and then they get deleted. That's my favorite line.
Yeah.
To your point, Beth, I think, certainly, I think the value of the Facilities Committee, to me, is a lot higher than the Highway Committees, only because we're going to, we're getting the road management system updated and so forth, and I think that's going to be a document that I think we're going to weigh on heavily about
Yeah.
future work.
And I said we'll probably will get that, I assume September-ish.
Probably October.
October, okay.
Yeah, the field work's done.
Okay.
But they've got to do all the calculating and algorithms on what's the best methods and so on and so forth. But as far as the committee concerned, I think, obviously for me, it was great having that list of projects that needed to get done, that we've accomplished or are working on now. And I think another list like that for budgeting and going forward, to me, would be valuable on all the facilities. Again, looking at this building, looking at the center school, looking at the community center, those types of things, to me, are very helpful
Okay.
in my role.
Maybe we could put out an email then to the department heads asking what work they think their facilities actually need, and we could discuss that.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have that committee day that you talked about where we clearly define, hey, these are the roles of the committees, this is the types of things we're expecting, committee by committee essentially, so that it's very clear, what the expectations are and what, things they can and can't suggest, or I shouldn't say that, but,
Right.
what things they can expect to influence and what things they can't, so that they understand going in what the role of the committee is. So, but I guess I guess we leave on the list, or still task you with helping set up committee day.
Yes.
And we'll when the dust settles a little bit, we got to do that. So if we could, let's go back to Matt's point about moving the center school related stuff to rec. Do we need a motion or just a consensus on that, Walter?
So then you have two committees discussing that.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, I'm just concerned that it says prepare for the 2022 budget.
Well, I interpreted it differently, Matt. I thought moving it towards rec was to deal with getting the painting organized, example via the Lions Club, getting some of the, sort of cosmetic stuff, but did that also extend then to maybe helping find contractors for like the lead-based painting or remediation and stuff, or how'd you think
And the
that?
school lead paint, because I know I personally scraped that building twice.
You're still alive.
Well,
Doing
then
okay.
I'm sure you still have your certificate, right? I'm sure you still have your certificate.
I guess I hadn't really given it that much thought that far down the road. I think, it could go either way. Recreation has done a good job over the last several years of working with those sort of community stakeholder types of folks to get in-kind donations and work donated. If that building, and part of the issue here is that we've never formalized the decision that that building would be utilized mainly for recreation programming. If we wanted to get consensus for that tonight, then the commission would have no problem going full steam ahead, I'm sure.
I just don't want to dump things on a committee that we can't even get done ourselves as a town hall. Like, that we can't
Okay.
find a painter. I don't want to dump it on a bunch of volunteers that we can't do it. you know, so.
Yeah, I guess from that perspective, well,
Because I want them to still focus on activities and programming and, you know, and.
Yeah, except, I mean, the commission is no longer needed for programming, right?
Well,
We've got
to help run programs, probably, yeah.
don't ever really need to be doing that, you know? I mean, Scott's doing a really great job. Mr. Blewett, the recreation director, is doing a fine job of yeah, I mean, he's doing a ton of new programming. He's bringing in instructors and coaches, and he's taking a lot of the weight off of the commission's shoulders. So I imagine the commission would be happy to take on
Okay.
an additional layer. Now, the work isn't done long-term up at the field complex, but, you know, there's short and long-term priorities, and I think the center school, the longer it sits there,
Oh, I know.
the harder it's going to be to fix it, and I can't stand the idea of that building just sitting there rotting when it's a great programming space, and we have a complete lack of indoor space in this town. So,
okay, so Walter, there's an issue though, like the short-term stuff. Matt, are you saying that you are willing to pick up some of that, or should we defer like the hard
so I think
lead?
even with something like the painting, right? I think
And I'm not
finding
talking-
someone to take a municipal contract to paint the community center is a heavier lift than finding someone to cut a great deal or even do it for free for what's effectively a two-day job. It's a low building. It's, you know, so I mean, I don't necessarily want to speak for the commission without bringing it to them, and maybe that's what we need to do is after our next commission meeting, which should be soon, maybe I can circle back to folks and just say, hey, we can just, you know, the commission's interested in taking this on.
Okay.
You want to just do that? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I think we
All right,
just need to
let's
try
do
to figure out a way to get this done, and we can't necessarily overburden Walter. There's a lot of stuff here. Okay, are we comfortable with that approach? So it might be another meeting before we get some clear resolution on this, but I appreciate you speaking up, Matt. Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the task list? I mean,
Well, we could take off number 22 and add the painting right there.
Will do.
Okay. Thank you.
number 22.
No, not 22.
That's
The 20, yeah, line
that's
22.
building. That's building permit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, girl.
A little further down.
Yeah. Well.
There's a few of them that have to come
Yeah.
off.
Okay.
Number 48.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this then?
Yeah, yeah.
We are making good progress on a lot of these, I got to say. And I see a lot of completes. Okay, does anybody want to comment on any of the other relative priorities? And again, you know, note that the priority levels are low, medium, and high, and he's got them categorized.
So it might be good to, I mean, you have some completes listed on here. Maybe we could like have a list of like all the ones that we have completed so we can like say at the end, like, look at all we did.
Well,
We went around the table a lot, but we
that's
gave
the
you a
Roy-
lot to do, Walter. Thank you very much.
that's the royal we, right?
Good job.
I got a question on 32, the boat ramps.
Ooh, yeah.
Where are we at And because we're running towards the end of the season, maybe it doesn't have to be a high priority
gonna
anymore,
say,
it could
we
be
got-
lowered.
That money coming in the next 2 years, we don't have to spend it right now. That's something to consider.
Yeah, I think the
Should be on
plan
the list, if it's not.
is to get over there, hopefully within the next week or so, and do something in-house, a rough grading, because people pulling their boats out in September and October are really going to have a problem. So that was one of the requests, that we at least go over there and do some rough grading so that people can get their boats out this fall. And then, as Tim mentioned,
Harvey and Northwood,
Harvey.
this is about ramps.
Well,
We talked about Northwood.
yeah, this is as Tim was alluding to.
Research improvements to Northwood and Harvey Lake.
Yeah, that was something that I was gonna put on our list for the new funding, is to look at both of those, because that's gonna take, engineering and so on and so forth, so.
The water, I mean.
And that seems to be functioning right now versus the Harvey Lake one, which is really a challenge for
We can put a big
Property
Band-Aid on
owners.
it to help people get their boats out, and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think Northwood's pretty bad, though.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Northwood boat launch is really bad, and it's probably used far more than Harvey Lake, so I think we need to definitely keep that one on our radar.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely on the radar, just at different levels right at the moment, so. But that's the
Okay.
general plan right now.
Yeah,
And we'll take a look at the one on Northwood and see if there's something we can do there.
well, I think we have to, as Walter said, do what we can ourselves without incurring the wetland things and all that. Because my recollection is when we did the one over on Bow Lake, I forget what we did, but, or when we did it, but it was like order of magnitude $60,000. So I
We
mean,
did cement them, versus having, the backhoe kind of like level it up.
yeah, but the water swishes back and
Water, we
forth.
put concrete,
Right, but $60,000
waterways in for the
is-
boat to click up,
yeah.
That kind of stuff. I mean, yes, there's probably cheaper alternatives, but we're not talking, a couple days' work. We're talking tens of thousands, not, a few thousand. So I think, those improvements, we by definition have to take a closer look at and get them on the list.
Right, because to some people, the lakes are just as important as, the state park, and
Yeah,
the
Oh.
lake, Northwood Lake is very, very busy in the summertime, and.
yeah, go down to that intersection, yeah.
And that is bringing people into town to
A lot.
stop and get gas, to get coffee, go to Johnson's, whatever, so. No, I don't have one anymore.
Talk to me after the meeting. Talk to me after the meeting. Okay, I think we digressed a little bit. Anything else on this list that we want to talk about relative to priorities? Okay, if not, I'll open it up for board committee reports. Anybody want to mention anything?
Sure, I'll go first, just on the recreation side of things. So the playground construction is fully complete. We get the fence up. Looks fantastic. There's a little bit of work that needs to be done in terms of moving some dirt around up top, but it looks phenomenal. And every time I go, there's at least
Oh,
eight
yeah,
kids there. So
yeah.
we also got the smaller structure in at that lower playground area and got the wood chips down there. So it looks awesome. It looks great. Friends of Recreation, although not the Rec Commission, is still looking at what their contribution to the grant match is going to be. And there are certain things that might wind up being donated that Friends are planning on purchasing. So if that all shakes out the right way, they're looking at doing some fencing down around the lower sports fields to keep the ball out of Mead Village. So we may have to come back to the board and ask some permission to make some facility changes down there if that's the way that goes. But we'll keep everybody up to date. But it looks amazing. If you haven't been over there, it's worth a trip.
Yeah, definitely. And Walter, I think we said when we do the mowing, we're also going to get them to swing down there for a little bit.
Yes, I talked to them about that. They're willing to do it.
Some of that's chainsaw work too, so not just like tractor work. I mean, some of the trees are big. I know the pond that we put in a couple years ago, that could probably all right with the mowers, but some of the stuff down by the Route 4,
Yeah, well,
Good to the
what we had discussed, I mean, again, it's open for discussion now too, but we had said, let's at least get somebody to bush hog as best we can so that we can at least see, what else we need to do. But yes, there's no doubt, there's
I
some,
can show you the layout of the pond up by the
Yeah.
yeah,
gazebo.
well, that water drainage basin
There's
needs
a lot
to
of
be
like
cleaned.
1.5
yeah,
inch
they'll-
sumacs up
they'll
there
chew
that
up.
we need to get before.
Too long, yeah. But I think that's beyond what the bush hog will
That
do,
would
but,
be, a day in the fall that maybe the highway department can get down there and,
Or, well,
yeah, we can
I
get
like
volunteers.
those houses.
Yeah,
there you go.
I got two, so call me.
So they,
Boys and their toys.
Oh, so they're going down, or?
yes, so they get about $100 an hour. So, we talked about maybe having to go up there for an 8-hour period. The rec director seems to feel that would put a pretty good dent in it, and I think he's right. So when they get into town, we'll show them that and see how they can impact that.
They might have the model that takes 2 and 3 inch trees. Yeah, so I'm optimistic.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. And that water basin needs to be
maybe not
cleaned out.
3 inch.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Matt?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? I got a couple items then. First off, related to the lakes, I'm just going to mention Northwood Lake has their lake host program, and they actually had 2 saves, meaning that they found milfoil on 2 boats. And that's 2 out of 10 saves amongst the entire state. So their program is working, but it's a problem they're going to have ongoing. So I just kudos to them for catching them. And then related to the planning board, I was happy to see Jim there at the planning board meeting when we discussed the CIP. He came as, alternate in case he has to cover for me, and, I think it was a good chance to get acquainted with the process. That said, there was some general, I don't want to say discontent, but some discussion that we can actually do better in terms of the process than what we currently have. And Linda sent out a couple examples, including one from Bo, that looked pretty good. And when I talked with Tim Jandeber, the board chair, about it, he said, that looked promising to him also, and he is willing to bring it up as an agenda item for the planning board to consider. So as part of that, Walter has taken it and basically talked to Dave Stack and got the Word document and tweaked it a little bit. So we'll be...
Dave and Bo now?
Dave Stack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he went, pretty sure he went to Bo from here. I think he's been there, yeah. So anyway, we're going to try to move that along, and and the reason I bring it up is because it involves committing some of the town resources like Walter and like Cheryl to help put together and help prioritize some of the CIP items as we work through that process. And so he's done a nice job in terms of tweaking that, and maybe you can send that to the rest of the board too, just so they can see it. But I think we have Tim's support to now look at that, discuss it, and really improve the program. So I'm kind of encouraged by that. So we'll see how that goes at the next, I'm not sure when he's going to put it on the agenda, but we'll see how that goes. But I was encouraged that he was willing to sort of take it to the next step.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's really important to keep the text, pretty level, versus,
Yes.
peaks and,
So that was the planning board. And final call on anything else? Okay, if not, then I don't see anybody here for Citizens Forum. So, Walter, I didn't see anything for non-public tonight either, is there?
Yes.
Okay, what do we need to go into non-public for?
Have to talk about some personnel compensation.
Okay, so do I have a motion to go into non-public?
I was saying 91.A.
91A:32, little a.
A.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, just logistics-wise, what are we going to do with Paul? Do you know how to shut down and start up?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay,
I
so,
mean, before he runs out, I'll get a reminder again, and
yeah, so we're going to vote, then Jim's going to double-check, we're going to take a 5-minute bio break, and then we'll come back in for the non-public. So, all those in favor of going
It's going to
to...
be a roll call.
Huh?
Roll call.
Oh, thank you. Jim, how do you vote?
yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Okay, thank you. So,
You get no bio break. You gonna go learn that?
yeah, you get to go second, Jim. Yeah. Thank you. Just like the crossing, George. I wasn't-